People are folding over more than they're flipping out for Samsung's latest smartphones, and Google has a leak problem when it comes to their new Pixels. Or do they? I kind of have a smart bed now. AI-generated art gets Shoryukened out of a competition, and a returning smartwatch app makes me fall in love with the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic. All of that in a bit of a question for all of you who stick around to the end of this episode. By the way, I made some matcha lattes. This one is for you. Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Tech and Tea. First things first, I have a little bit of gratitude to express. A lot of you really showed up for my Galaxy Z Fold 7 Week 1 video, and I really thank you for that. If you haven't watched it yet, I'm going to go ahead and put a link above and below. But basically, I talked about how Samsung's adjustments that were made to the overall design of the Fold this year helped it not only reach parity with other foldables that we've seen and enjoyed outside of the US, but now it is a very compelling choice here in the US market. Because apparently, back in Samsung's home of South Korea, the Galaxy Z Fold 7 and the Z Flip 7 are selling particularly well, which is a market improvement from what was described as last year's, let's just say, sluggish sales. While it may not necessarily be blowing previous numbers out of the water, this year's pre-orders seem to have an uptick, and that's a big deal. It kind of goes to show that even if in the tech community Samsung might be a brand that we all know too well, it still has the ability to make waves in just the right ways to make people notice. The thing is, this year's trends are not just up for Samsung, but they're also shifting. As it turns out, all screen all the time is starting to be more enticing for buyers rather than what I'll call closing and going. Pre-orders in Korea are set to end in a few days as of the recording of this video, and numbers are showing that the Galaxy Z Fold 7 comprises more than half of them, 60% actually, which is more than the Galaxy Z Flip 7 in South Korea. As it says here, this year's Galaxy Z series is a lot more popular than last year's, with this year's foldables having doubled the pre-order numbers of last year, showing that the redesign of both the Fold and the Flip are what Samsung needed to keep these foldable sales strong. It turns out the practicality of a foldable that works just like a regular phone when closed is resonating. I always thought that it was easier to convince people to go for the smaller, more pocketable form factor of the Flip, but perhaps a pocketable tablet has become the way to go for some people. Or maybe the expectation of performance when it comes to processor name brands does actually mean something to buyers. Anyway, I'm a fan of the Galaxy Z Fold 7, as you would know from my Week 1 video, but I'm also working on the Galaxy Z Flip 7 right now, and I'll be sharing my thoughts on this in a video coming in this upcoming week. One gripe that has been common among techies with the Galaxy Z Fold 7 is the lack of S Pen support. Now, while plenty of people were bummed out about this development, Samsung maintains that the very reason for this omission is because very few people actually use it on the Fold historically. Let me know where you draw the line, so to speak, when it comes to S Pen support. It would seem that in order to make the foldable as thin as possible, Samsung decided to remove that digitizer layer from the displays. But that doesn't mean it's gone forever. One of the execs actually said here that the Fold 7 emphasized that consumers want a thin and light product, so you can think of the S Pen removal as a trade-off where you lose one if you choose one. But as he says, we are also researching and developing thinner and innovative technologies for the S Pen, so we will reconsider it when the level of perfection increases and there is consumer demand. If YouTube comments are the sample size, you could definitely say there is consumer demand, so maybe advancements in the technology will see this feature come back in future Galaxy Z Fold releases. Is that something you would like to see? Feel free to let me know in the comments. Another year, another set of leaks for the new Pixels, presumably put out by Google themselves. Well, we have no way of actually knowing if Google is doing all of this deliberately, but the folks over at Ars Technica, and later I'll show Android Authority, they uncovered pictures and video of the new Pixel 10 that reveals a very similar design to last year's models. That is to say, the Cyclops visor is the camera bump once again, and of course there are rounded edges for what I thought was a satisfyingly substantial build last year. It did feel and look pretty good in my opinion. Now, assuming that this is the base model Pixel 10, one notable change that can be seen in this leak is the inclusion of a third camera, if you can see up there, which means that the base models of the Pixel 10 will actually have a telephoto lens to go along with the ultra-wide. I think that's pretty cool, especially if the base level pricing remains relatively the same to previous years, so computational photography and software cleaned up zooms will be available for all. And here comes Android Authority with a leak that was found through the Play Store, actually. We just talked about the Galaxy Z Fold 7, and while the upcoming Pixel 10 Pro Fold, that's a bit of a mouthful, might not be much different from last year's offering, this might be the year to really look closely at the two as foldable options here in the US, and I'll be really keen to share my thoughts on that comparison and on the Pixel 10 Pro Fold in general after the event happens in August. Last year's Pixel Watch was a good release with Fitbit at the helm for health tracking and Google's minimalist design helping it blend in with pretty much any outfit. I don't really know why there's flickering in my video here, but this year it's getting what seems to be the biggest change in this whole Pixel release cycle in my opinion with a new charging methodology. And here it is, shouts out to Alex over at Android Headlines. It seems like the charging contacts are actually going to be on the side, opposite the main power button, the rotating dial as well. And then when you put it into the charger, it will actually sit on its side and become like a proper docking solution. Now, typical charging pucks for smartwatches tend to be like simple circles that the devices have to lay upon, but something like this can really give the watch more functionality when it's off a wrist. Even just as like a funky clock on the side, like I've managed to do with the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic via this funky accessory made for the charging puck. Now, if I'm sitting down here to write or edit for a while, I actually have it just sitting over here on the side. I get a little clock to check the time right next to my keyboard. I'll leave a link to this nifty little charging dock in the description or in my bio if you're watching this on social media. Okay, I've been sharing my journey in building out my new apartment on all of these episodes of Tech and Tea, but I almost can't believe that I'm this excited to talk about today's cup of tea, because I genuinely didn't expect to be so happy with how it all turned out. I finally have a bed here in my apartment after sleeping on the pull-out couch that has been over in the living room for almost 3 months now, and true to my techie side, this bed is actually smart. Well, at the very least, the bed frame is. The friends over at BDI Furniture were gracious to give me a discount on their Uplink bed. And yes, that is a light strip in the headboard. A touch-sensitive area on top turns on this soft warm light with a tap and then changes the brightness with a hold, which makes it easy to have a night light or have some ambient lighting right up until it's time to really fall asleep. And yes, over on the sides there are some real smart additions with a USB-A and a USB-C port, both above some outlets to plug other items in if needed. All I really needed was the USB-C port for overnight charging while I recharge myself. And actually that area underneath that soft light is the perfect place to stash a phone for the night. I'm still debating on getting some sort of nightstand because I'd probably just make that a charging station too, but my charging needs are already met in the headboard of my bed. The Uplink comes in queen and king sizes with just enough room underneath for storage, which I'll be getting to put alongside my open-faced luggage that is always ready for the next trip. Honestly, it's just really cool to have like a unique bed that also manages to pretty elegantly fulfill a few techie needs along the way. And that's why the Uplink by BDI Furniture is definitely one of this week's cups of tea. But that brings me to the most important part of the setup, the bed itself, and that's where this episode's sponsor comes in, NOLA Mattress. NOLA reached out at basically the perfect time as I was getting settled into this apartment and was figuring out what kind of bedroom setup I wanted. I figured going for their best-selling item was the move, so enter the NOLA Evolution. Made to order and shipped from their warehouse in Arizona, the Evolution was rolled up and packaged to be easy to get over to the bed frame. However, it's definitely not a light item and requires a couple of people to lift it onto the bed. Once the plastic was taken off, the bed quite literally sprung to life, reaching its full expansion after 24 hours, but was ready to sleep on pretty much immediately. That's pretty much what I did, and let me tell you, that first night on this bed was some of the best sleep I've had in a while. Now, this queen size is plenty for one person and still spacious for two, and obviously I don't have any sheets on it right now, but I just wanted to show you what the NOLA Evolution looks like straight up. And the name Evolution actually comes from how NOLA have married multiple high-quality aspects of beds into one great mattress. It's all layered here with multiple foam layers up top, one of them being NOLA's Zoned Air Foam HD that redistributes body weight so as to help relieve tension around the joints. That's just one specific layer of foam among many that work together to relieve any pressure whether you're sleeping on your side or your back. The layer that is right over the coil area is their EverAdapt transition foam, and that one alleviates movement transfer and keeps bounce to a comfortable minimum so that my partner doesn't get too disturbed if I'm turning from side to side in the night. Now, under all of the foams are the coils, the HD Max Tri-Zone coils, all individually wrapped and set in 3 different zones for targeted comfort. Now, compared to typical springs that just give like general support, having all of these individual coils helps the bed actually contour to the body. Now, I'm a side sleeper, so it's important for me to have some firmness for my general comfort, but still, I need to be on a surface that allows my back and my spine to be aligned for optimal rest. All of the coils adapt to me while the foams provide the pressure relief and the cooling. Speaking of cooling, you're actually seeing the one final layer I want to talk about, and that is an addition that you can only get on the Evolution mattress. This cooling top, and it's actually cool to the touch right now, is what Nola calls the Glacio Tex Pillow Top. It's a top cover that has high thermal conductivity fibers to draw out any heat. It also adds cushion, obviously, and has these deeper areas that help to promote more airflow. I'm happy to have it specifically during these summer months. I haven't felt the need to lower my thermometer below an economical level, as the cool bed and the ceiling fan, which is running right now, have been more than enough. I do genuinely feel like this is the best mattress I've ever slept on. I've even seen some improvement on my sleep tracking numbers on this bed compared to previous ones I've had, and certainly I've gotten better numbers than when I was sleeping on the pull-out couch in the living room. I also now understand what my friends are saying when I'm on work trips or even vacation and they say, I just want to sleep in my own bed. Recently, while on a New York City hotel bed, I found myself thinking the exact same thing. And that's why this Nola Evolution mattress has really been my cup of tea. If you're due for an upgrade in your sleep comfort, the Nola mattresses could be what you've been looking for. Mine in particular is the Nola Evolution Queen Size in the Luxury Firm Firmness level. You can check out this mattress and all the others in their catalog via the links I have in the description and in the pinned comment below. Shipping is free, and you're free to try the mattresses for 120 nights. If you're not satisfied, it can be returned for a full refund minus a $99 return pickup fee. And to end this, I just want to give a big thanks to Nola for sponsoring this portion of Tech and Tea and for helping me get a real good night's rest. Well, the tea is ready. We're having matcha lattes today. I'm going a little bougie with it though. I am using ceremonial grade matcha from Hugo Tea, but it's going in like unsweetened pecan milk, and then I'm throwing in some sweetener of my own in the form of allulose. The result is basically a matcha latte, but no sugar, no carbs. For somebody like me, type 2 diabetic, this is the way to go. Anyway, today's reminder for this tea break as I check in with all of you is, if you're not good at something, look forward to when you are. In some ways, I feel like this channel has gone through a lot of seasons, and recently it's felt like I've been kind of starting from scratch. Again, I'm really grateful that you all showed up for my Galaxy Z Fold 7 video recently, because it kind of reaffirmed to me that, yeah, like I am good at doing this, and there are people who will show up to hang out with me when I put out these videos. What matters is that I put them out consistently, and that is something that I've been really trying to fix recently, and I'm not the best at it, Tech and Tea being a great example of that. But I have to remind myself that even if I'm trying new things like this new show format, I'm not going to be great at it at first. And I feel like a lot of people just run out of the motivation to continue doing something if at the first few attempts they aren't already great at it. But I'm reminding myself that I'm going to be good at this eventually, I'm going to be consistent, and I'm going to work to get to that point. So I'm just going to look forward to what it's like when I actually do achieve it. If I throw in a little bit of therapy talk, I think this is similar to the dichotomy between a performance mindset and a growth mindset. I think for over 3 decades, I recently celebrated my 36th birthday. I think for over 3 decades, I have always had like a performance mindset. Not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not just beating myself up over that. It's just the way that I was taught. It's the way that I was wired. And now I'm trying to move over to a growth mindset where I know that as long as I continue trying, continue doing, well, I'm going to get better at something, and how great is it going to be when I am better at it? And actually, if you want to keep it simple, if there's something that you really want to get good at, you're never going to get there if you stop. So to end this tea break, the reminder once again, one final time is if you're not good at something right now, look forward to when you are. And as I usually say during every tea break, what's going on everybody? Let me know how you're doing in the comments down below, and let me know something that you're like working on right now, something that you're getting the reps in for, something that you are looking forward to getting better at by continuing to get better at it. Let me know in the comments down below. Let's have those discussions and to check in with one another, because I hope that we can all kind of hang out, and that's part of the reason why I like making tech and tea regularly. Well, as much as I can. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to it and round this episode out. Okay, this one might be a little bit offbeat, but I was really interested in it. How do you feel about AI-generated art? Well, the lines have been drawn in an official manner as Capcom has taken a stance against one AI-generated entry in their recent online art competition. The company held an art contest to let players and artists submit new screens for the Here Comes a New Challenger screen, which is one of my favorite parts of the game, where if you're playing online, someone challenges you or you get matched up with somebody, then a whole new screen showing who is coming at you shows up, and usually there's a lot of really cool art in those screens. The art that shows up on these screens and is found throughout the game, honestly, are like really cool, and they are proper celebrations of an OG gaming franchise, but one entry actually got people pixel peeping and uncovering some weird discrepancies. One entry for Kimberly, Street Fighter VI's Resident Ninja, and in all honesty, one of my least favorite fighters to battle online, it was singled out by Redditors and by a Twitter user Hoodrat20xx for having aspects that seem like choices only an AI would really make. This is also alongside a couple of other pieces of art that were just accused of being blatantly derivative or just straight up copying other artists' work. The discussions online continued since the competition back in June, and this week actually, Capcom put out a statement that one entry has indeed been disqualified, though they did not say which one it was. Internet sleuths, however, have noticed that the accounts related to the artist that submitted the alleged Kimberly AI-generated art has since gone dark. Not a great look. Now, I wanted to bring this story to Tech and Tea mainly because of my love for Street Fighter VI, but also for the love of the art that is consistently displayed and unlocked when playing the single-player modes. Like, you can play through the arcade mode a bunch of times, and every single time you're treated to more art, and it all is awesome. Now, while I do think there is a place for AI-generated art, like making, let's say, a quick background for like your smartphone, using the generative stuff on the phone for your personal use, just something that looks cool on your background, or maybe you want to like create a wacky emoji that doesn't already exist and send it in a group chat. Where I draw the line, obviously, and I think a lot of people do, is when you're trying to benefit from AI-generated art professionally and in situations like this competition where it is simply disingenuous and disrespectful to the actual artists who put in the time and effort to try to be a part of a game that they love so much. Good on Capcom for taking a stand with it, and the fact that people were able to clock that something was actually maybe AI generated goes to show that identifying AI is still possible, but we'll have to see how long that lasts with how rapidly the technology is growing. For the people who won in the contest legitimately, congratulations to them, and also I can't wait to use these art pieces because they will be given away to all Street Fighter VI players for free to use as a challenger screen option following the Battle Hub Street Voter event, which is happening right now, I believe. But anyway, let me know what you think about AI-generated art in the comments. Give me your thoughts on this situation and AI-generated art in general. And finally, a bit of a fun topic to end this episode, and it's a pretty feel-good story for those of you who are really into your wearables. Originally announced back at Google I/O, the popular and likely best smartwatch watch face marketplace, Facer, another tongue twister, is finally working again on Wear OS smartwatches after the latest software update reopened the ability for their app to work fully. I actually didn't realize that this was happening until I came across a post from the good friend, Mr. Mobile, Michael Fisher himself, showing off his Galaxy Watch 8 Classic and showing the fun that you can have on these wearables now that Facer is back on Wear OS. Facer makes it easy too. You just download the app on your Android phone and then it will also sync the companion app to the Wear OS smartwatch, after which time you actually don't really have to pay for a subscription or even pay for watch faces to start having some fun on your wrist, unless the design that you want is behind a paywall that is usually around a few dollars. But I do think for a few dollars, this Doom Guy smartwatch watch face would be worth the price. This update actually comes at the perfect time. Shouts out to Will at 9 to 5 for talking about how it's just in time for the Galaxy Watch 8 and the Pixel Watch 4, which is obviously impending. But with the Galaxy Watch 8, I went ahead and installed Facer. I started to look at some of the stuff, and then I realized the one I should definitely be looking for is the GoldenEye Spy watch face from the pause menu on the N64 game. That right there was enough to convince me the Galaxy Watch 8 Classic is definitely the one for me. And it just goes to show you how having options and proper customization abilities on something like a wearable can make all the difference, and it's also kind of why we love Android in the first place. So let me know, what would you put on your wrist, both in terms of the actual like physical wearable that you might have or that might be coming, and what watch face would you put on it? And so there you have it for this episode of Tech and Tea. I do want to give one more shout out to Nola for sponsoring and providing this week's Cup of Tea segment, which I genuinely recommend you try some of their mattresses. I have the Evolution. If you're in the market for an upgrade for your sleep, the links are in the description and in the pinned comment below. Really, thanks so much for spending time with me this weekend, getting caught up on some news. And for those of you who are still here at the end of the episode, I do have a question for y'all. What do you think of me adding a segment to this show called Hot Tea? Tea for tea, obviously, but also hot take. It's basically me sharing a hot take, usually about tech. I think it would be fun, even if sometimes I admit to something that is, let's say, polarizing. Let me know if you'd like a segment like that, and let's just open up the discussion a bit. What is a hot tea that you have these days? Post it in the comments, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit on the next episode. From there, though, I'm going to go ahead and call it on this one. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this episode of Tech and Tea. Please take care of yourselves and each other, and enjoy your tea, everybody.